Okay, it is recording. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, sure. And good morning, everybody, and welcome. I think Dan's working his way on board here. And a couple comments I'll make is I've enjoyed watching uh, our data and our results relative to Pulse as we start to adapt and use this program. And I think the real focus for this meeting today is continued discussion of how is the system working for you? What questions do you have that might help you better integrate it into your daily routine? So I think a lot of our discussion today is going to be centered on questions and answers, and so I hope you will feel free to send a chat, raise your hand, turn on the video, and ask questions as we go along. I feel good about where we are in the integration of Pulse. It's not the sort of thing that you do overnight. If you're not fully certified, it's time to be fully certified. And if you're not using Pulse with every presentation, then it's time to take a look at your daily habits and use of Pulse and make sure that we get that integrated as a habit. So with that, John, I'll turn it over to you and ask you to fill in any gaps, and we'll go from there.
Well, I thank you, sir. On behalf of the Pulse team, once again, we are extremely proud, to be working with you. And I just want to reinforce one simple thing this morning before we get on to the focus of the meeting, as Mr. Todd Carpenter said, just entertaining your questions and responding to any concerns, issues that you might have. I just want to reinforce what we're doing here. Our mutual objective is not checking boxes. It's a transformation. This is what has been so effective at Lee Enterprises up in Pittsburgh, other clients, is transforming from what worked in the past, product price presentations, very effective, in years gone by, but not so much now because of obvious all the changes. What's working today, and it's a transformation, is engaging with your businesses every time with what Lee calls the tip of the spear, which is your information, your audience information on the shopping plans for their specific business. And the other thing I want to quickly bring up is the other part of this transformation, and this was so successful at Trib Total Media in Pittsburgh, is long-term campaigns. Not presenting and just getting the one-time sale, but no, a longer term campaign, because that's in the best interest of the business and obviously for you. And we've made some really solid progress, as Mr. Carpenter stated, in October, almost 350,000 in sales, and already in November, closing in on $100,000 in sales. The only comment I have here is, and it's part of this transformation, is filling the pipeline with more engagements and presentations, because we're doing really well on the closes, on the sales, but we got to get more in the pipeline. I was an ad director once. It's pretty simple. So with that, I would appreciate and more than happy to assist in any way I can with any questions or feedback that you have. So take it away, please. So I'm opening up the chat.
Good morning,
here.
John.
Yes, sir. Yes, Rhett.
Hey, this is Rhett with Shelby County Reporter. My
Hello,
question for you is there a way to have different call planners? Say if I'm working on a special publication like for weddings or bridal, is that a way to just have a call planner just for that group?
Yes, you can. And what I can do is I can have one of the Pulse team members, Rhett, post a short video on how you can set up a call plan for a special project, okay?
Perfect, thank you.
You're more than welcome. So let me make a note of that here. Okay, glad to help.
This is Lindsay with the Suffolk News Herald. I have a question about when you mark something as engaged, and then the presentations, I'm noticing that if I go through the system, and maybe I'm not doing it correctly, but if I forget to mark it as engaged and I make the presentation, I can't go back and mark it as engaged, or can I?
You should be able to, but let me double check that out.
Sure. And then one other question I have. Uh, if I add something to the call planner, I'm having difficulties where it's, if I want to go and update something to it, it makes a duplicate in my call planner.
Yes, and that's true. And it's quite complicated in setting up the timing of the different functions or tasks within the call planner. So yes, within a week, when you set up a different function or sales task, it does set up on a separate line for you. So to that degree, yes, it is a bit confusing. And we're trying to figure out if there's a simpler way to do that, but still maintain the integrity of the flow, the sales process. Okay. So I'm going to make a note of that, Lindsay, and see what we can do, because I've had that concern come up before, that it gets confusing with multiple lines for a single business. Okay, so I hear you.
Good morning, John. This is Dave Singleton. I was just wondering, with reference to Lindsay's question, did you say if you went back in with the same customer within 7 days or a week, and it does the double line?
That's within the same week it does, sir.
Okay, good deal. Good to know. Thank you.
Okay, and I think you brought up a good point, and let me just kind of brainstorm with you guys. We appreciate your feedback, and Pulse is always committed to listening and adapting or revising the program to be more usable and effective for you. And one of the things I want to do with a call planner is make it easier to use as a call report, not just a call list, a prospect list, but an actual call report. Okay. So we'll take a look at the call planner, and let's see if we can put together a little video on that also, okay? An update on it. So great questions, great feedback.
This is Ashley Tipler. I have a question.
Yes, Ashley.
So when I go into my list of businesses, it's populating businesses that are in other cities that are not in my territory. How do I customize it to where my territory will populate?
Okay, when you go into the prospecting with the map, the geo-prospecting, okay, not the business types, but geo-prospecting, it gives you the opportunity to tag your own area. You start out by putting in your zip code, and then you can save it as your area.
Well, I have gone in and typed in zip codes, but I'm talking about like on a main page when I'm just going just to a business list, it's pulling up cities that are not in my territory. I mean, I know how to punch the zip code in, but it's automatically pulling up businesses that are in other cities. Can I set it to where it automatically just populates my cities?
Yes, absolutely. Ashley?
Yes.
I'll get back to you and let's take a look, because it should absolutely give you only businesses within the zip code or community that you put into the program, okay?
Okay.
So I'll get back to you on that, Ashley.
Okay.
So
Hi, John. This is
Amelia, just a second. I've got to make notes here and write it legibly, or I won't be able to, get back. Okay, so Ashley will get back to you on businesses outside your zip, okay? Okay, go ahead, Amelia.
Hi, John. Good morning.
Good morning.
We are having an issue, and I believe that we brought it to your attention. We our zip code is automatically sending us to Vicksburg.
Mhm.
And so we're having to manually type in our zip codes each time because it thinks that we are in Vicksburg here.
Mhm.
Is there a way that we can change that?
Yeah, it should not do that. We set up in the programming that once you put in your zip code, from that point on, the businesses that display should absolutely be from your area. And you said Vicksburg?
Yes, and it's not just, it's Ironton having the same problem because we're all part of Rebecca Alexander's team.
Okay.
And it's just automatically assuming that we're all in Vicksburg. So we're having to enter it in each time. So if there's a way that, and I've saved where my location, 38655, I've saved it, but
Mhm.
it still goes back to Vicksburg each time.
Well, I'm glad we're getting together this morning because that should not be. And I understand the frustration of that. So I will absolutely get together with Brian Knapp on that, Amelia, and he will get back to you. So you can share with him your screen so we can get this addressed.
Thanks so much, John.
Okay? So,
And we're also having the same problem here in Austin. It says we're in Salisbury.
okay.
So we have to manually change ours every time too.
Okay, so Brenda, we will also, Brian will follow up with you and Amelia. Okay?
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Just a second, give me a moment here to write this down.
Okay.
So you're Brenda Landher and then Amelia, both have the same issue. That the
I think
program-
I think we're all having the same issue.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Okay.
if you
Yes.
check the chat, a few of us had said
Yes.
the same thing.
Okay, just let
Not
me get on
just
the
two.
chat here. Okay, well, my apologies. This is absolutely something we've got to address right away, and we thought we had. So, my apologies. We will get this addressed. So, thank you very much. Okay, what else?
John, if you get a chance, if you can look in the chat, there's probably 5 or 6 questions in there as well.
Okay. Good to hear you this morning, Dan. Okay, so I've got
my technology figured out.
very good. Okay, so we got zip code, same here, same here. Okay, a question from Mary Lattic. You know, what if there are more than one rep in a community and there are more than one territory in the same zip? Is there a way to divide the type of situation geographically within the one zip code? That's a tough one. What you can do, Mary, is assign accounts. You have the ability as a manager to assign accounts within Pulse. But within one zip code, the program does not have that level of sophistication. I'm sorry. Maybe we could do it by community, if there are multiple communities within a zip code. I'll have Brian Knapp take a look at that, but I don't think we can, so I'm sorry on that. Okay, prospecting list doesn't make that, same issues. Central Kentucky, same issue on zip, same problem. Okay. Okay, there's a question from Ginger. So thank you, Ginger. I have a question about recording presentations. So Ginger, if you would unmute your mic, what is your specific question about recording?
Okay, this is something we're having issues with here. If you look at your reporting, you know, it tells you when something was assigned, when you were engaged, presented in the reporting section of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now it will let me go in and click, you know, the date I engaged with a client, or click the date something was sold or that they passed. Now, I've had to do a couple of different things to get it to show up a presented date. I don't know if that's something I'm doing wrong, or is engaged being considered the same as presented. A lot of times it will only let me click a presented date after I've already sold, and it'll say, do you want to record a presented date? So am I doing it wrong? When you're in the reporting or in activities, it only really gives you the option to edit your presentation, or to change the date of engagement. So I've got a lot of things that have been presented, but they're not showing up in my reporting.
Okay, so just to clarify, you've marked them as sold, but you cannot mark them as presented. Is that correct, Ginger?
Yes, if I've sold something, I can mark it as sold. That's not a problem. But I've done a lot of presented that haven't been sold. So just going in to just, show that I did a presentation, I'm finding it very difficult to find the button or whatever I need to press that will log in a presented date under the reporting tab, which is looked at by other people and, want to see how many presentations I've done.
Oh, absolutely. So let me do this, Ginger. I will get back to you on that, and we'll just go through it on your screen. I think that would be the most effective way to do it.
Okay.
So what's your last name, Ginger?
Brooms, Broomes.
Okay.
Sure.
Pardon? Okay. So thank you, Ginger. So I'm looking at the chat here. Yeah, there's some questions about the accuracy of Google Maps in terms of having all businesses display, and that's absolutely true. The Pulse prospecting tools are based upon the Google Maps, which is not perfect. So if you don't find it, when you're prospecting using, the mapping prospecting tools we have, please just click on accounts and enter the account. We are dependent upon, the accuracy of Google. And once again, unfortunately, it doesn't have all the businesses.
John, hi, this is Dana Snow. I have a question.
Yes, Dana.
Okay, so if you're pulling a teaser or a flyer and it comes up, okay, there are two places the business name is listed. One is down at the bottom where under the would you like to know. You can go in and edit that. My question is, say you have two businesses of the like kind and you want to use that same information for maybe one that's not even in Pulse. Is there a way to change the name at the top? I know I can change it down at the bottom under the edit, but I'm not able to change it at the top. Is that possible?
No, it isn't. And there are two options, if you will. Number one is, I would suggest just creating another presentation for that business. And the benefit of that is that then sets up in your Pulse program that account, that presentation. Okay. The other option is you could create a generic presentation like Vicksburg Realtor as the business name, Vicksburg Realtor, a generic name, and then use that generic presentation, Vicksburg Realtor, for realtors in Vicksburg. But I don't suggest that because it's in your best interest to have an account for each realtor and have those presentations saved in your reporting program. Does that make sense, Dana?
It does. It does. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, because you can create a presentation in 60 seconds. And so I would just suggest making another presentation because no, you can't edit the name at the top of a presentation. Okay?
John, this is Candy Davis.
Yes, Candy, good morning.
Good morning. If there is a category that is not listed in the type of business within the template, what is your recommendation that a marketing consultant should do?
Good question, Candy. Obviously, we can't have every single type of business. You know, a year or so ago, I got a call from a client in California, and they said, this program is broken. It's useless. I said, why? She said, because you do not have organic horseshoes. That's a business here, organic horseshoes. Well, the reality is we can't have every single business. So Candy, here's my suggestion. I once on a four-legged sales call, we went into, essentially it was a junkyard, right? And we did not ask in the survey, do you or your household plan to shop, go to a junkyard? So here's what I did and here's what I suggested. And in fact, it also happened, I went into a bird seed store. And we hadn't asked in the survey, as you're saying, do you plan to shop at a birdseed store? So what I did is I asked the business. I said, you're the expert. Even though we didn't ask in the survey, if you were to do a survey based upon your knowledge and expertise, what percentage of the households here locally would go to a birdseed store? And most of the time they say, well, I don't know, right? And so then I say, well, what would be the highest percentage? 90%? Oh, no, that'd be too high. But what'd be the lowest percent? That's too low. And you just do kind of a high-low. And it's amazing doing that for just a moment. They then, some little, word goes off in their head, voice goes off in their head. And they say, I think it'd be about 17%. And that has worked very effective because then you take the percentage they say as the expert and then multiply it times the households you reach. So if the birdseed store, and this is an actual experience, they said, I think it'd be about 17%. So I took 17%, let's say there's 1,000 households, that's 170 households in their projection who plan to shop at a birdseed store, and it was very effective. So quick summary, every business isn't in there. That's okay. The survey is already very, very long. Just ask them. Just ask them. Say, you're the expert. What do you think? Okay? Does that make sense, Candy?
Yes, it does. Now I have another question.
Sure.
Targeted digital. When you are including this in an overall proposal and with our audience numbers, how do you suggest we handle targeted digital numbers?
My suggestion is regardless of what you're presenting, just start the conversation with the overall opportunity for that business, in your market area, your market footprint, if you will, to get the conversation, get them interested, and then specifically talk about, the specific details of your digital program. Okay?
Okay.
Because we're dealing with apples and oranges. The digital programs are of the total market, that may or may not, read the paper or your website. But we still want to get them interested. We still have extremely valuable information for them. So like Lee said, and they brought up the same question, Candy. Every presentation, every time, start with tip of the spear. What's the opportunity for the business? Okay? So I understand the incongruity there, but it's just because of the reality. Okay?
Okie doke.
Okay, thanks, Candy. And so Dave Singleton to everybody, I wonder if we could create a custom audience with a common number for targeted impressions and local audience. Let me get Brian involved on that and some of the others at Pulse, David, and see what we can do. I know there's a client we're working with in Canada, and one of the things to help bridge this was we said this is the minimal number of households that you're going to add additional households with the digital. So I'll have Brian get back to David and everybody else. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good. We just have one of our common deals is, 35,000 impressions a month, targeted digital. That's one of our bundles that we sell a lot of. And, that's a solid number that seems like a kind of a non-variable we could add to a custom audience or add to one of our existing audiences, to say, this is what your reach will be with this bundle.
Perfect. Well, let's see what we can do for you, David, and everybody else, okay? Come up with a defensible estimate projection. Okay? Great questions this morning. Thank you. Great feedback. So I'm just going back through the chat to see if there's anything I missed. And while I'm doing that, it's a wide open microphone, so jump on if you've got any questions. I appreciate you guys. You're not bashful this morning, and your questions are extremely applicable, and Pulse appreciates it.
John, this is Candy again. I'll ask some more questions.
Okay, Candy.
The template drives a 3-month buying cycle of that this is what the customers are going to be in the market for over the next 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
If I am driving a 12-month proposal, what is the difference, or is there one?
Well, it's a very good question, Candy. And obviously, before the darn pandemic, we asked, what do you plan to buy in the next 12 months? Historically, for years and years. But because of the pandemic and its ongoing uncertainty, for the benefit of the business and make it more usable, we decided to change for 3 months. But you're absolutely right. We want you to make 12-month presentations. And so my suggestion, if I was out in the field and you and I were making 4-legged sales calls today, and as I'd point out, this is the immediate near-term opportunity, and hopefully, it will either be stable or improve from that in terms of the potential over the next 12 months. Okay.
So can you multiply the opportunity by 4?
Not necessarily, like car purchasing. That household is not going to buy a new car every quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And so, no, I would not do that. But I would just focus, here's the opportunity immediately. So let's just say that 500, vehicles are going to be bought. And so that's 500 in the next 3 months.
Right.
But then you do that break-even Pulse calculator. And let me just, once again, recommend that highly to everybody. Use the break-even calculator with their input. It's been phenomenally successful. So back to you, Candy. On the break-even calculator, let's say the cost of the campaign is $12,000. They make $1,000 on a car. All they need is 12 over 12 months, but there's 500 in the first 3 months. So it's a very positive opportunity, even though we're talking 3-month purchasing and a 12-month campaign. That's how I would handle it. Okay? You've got 500 in the first 3 months. All you need is 12 in a little, model we put together here to pay for the campaign. Okay?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. That actually makes it even more attractive. You got 500 in the next, 3 months. Here's how much you have in the next 3 months. And all you need is, very few of those. And that covers the whole 12 months. So it's a great story to tell. I hadn't thought about that. So thanks, Candy. Okay, a question from Kylie. The bug I encounter is most information being saved and disappearing. I frequently have to re-enter accounts if I do it manually. So what you're saying, Kylie, and jump in, on the microphone. So if you go into accounts and you set up a business, it doesn't save it. Is that correct, Kylie?
Yes, sir. It happens the most with phone numbers. It'll save everything but the number, and then even if I re-enter it, it's taken me a couple times. And I do wait for it to update as well. because I thought that might be the issue.
Let me check into that. I haven't heard that. So just to repeat, Kylie, it saves the information, the name, the street, etc., but does not save the phone number, right?
Sometimes it doesn't save anything,
Oh.
but frequently it's the phone number.
Okay. Okay, perfect. We'll get on that and get back to you. I'm sure glad I'm recording this because I can just then give the recording to the Pulse team and they will have, direct input, from each of you instead of relying on my handwriting here. I just thought of that. So anything else you can think of?
I have a question. So a lot of times I'm using a PowerPoint proposal that explains some of our digital products as well as some of our print products. Then with the presentation tool in Pulse, unless I fill it out and use that as the proposal mechanism, I don't know that I'm able to go back and get credit for those proposals that are that I'm doing as the type of proposals we've been doing, which are presence, competitive, and dominant. And how would I incorporate my PowerPoint presentations and these in the same and get credit?
I think I'd have to see that, Rebecca. And so I'm making a note here to give you a call.
Okay.
Okay. But we want to make darn sure you get credit for it. Okay. And also, it's a positive to be able to integrate what you're already presenting. You said a PowerPoint with your Pulse information, tip of the spear. Okay. So I'll make a note here to give you a call, Rebecca. Okay.
John, this is Candy Davis.
Yes, Candy.
The question that Rebecca has, I think will come up in many other areas and instances. So that might be one you may want to send the answer to overview to the group.
Okay.
I think many of these things that you're seeing, somebody may have identified, but once there's a question, it actually is going to be for everybody.
Okay.
Follow me on that?
Good point. So what will Pulse do, we're going to make some, one-on-one calls and follow up, but the answers and the suggestions, we will put together a document, but we will send to everybody, okay? So we'll send a Q&A document to everybody.
I think that's terrific. Thank you.
So great suggestion. I appreciate that. Wow, this has been great. Absolutely great. I'm sorry I don't have the answers to everything, but frankly, I never have, never will. But what's important is we will get back to you on each one of these suggestions, questions, concerns.
John, Jim Boone, while we're pausing for a moment, this reminds me of a time many years ago when I was talking with a department head who presented a problem to me. As we solved it, he looked up and he said, "Why do we always get this kind of a problem?" I said, "Well, if we didn't, neither one of us would have a job." I appreciate the go forward pleasant way in which you cope with such.
Well, thank you. I mean, I will be blunt. The reason that Pulse has survived after, oh my gosh, on January 1st, it'll be 36 years, is because we're constantly committed to enhancing, adding, fixing, modifying based upon your needs and the businesses, frankly, and the businesses. That's our DNA. So thank you, Mr. Boone. Appreciate that.
This is Ashley Tippler.
Yes, Ashley.
Will you get into some details about how you decide in a sit, like break down how you go in and poll all of these people to come up with these numbers?
Okay.
Like, let's use West Point as an example. So the population is 3,000. How many are getting polled out of a certain city, and how is it broken down by who gets polled for this research?
Okay, taking a step back, the survey is done across the country.
Okay.
We ask individual papers like Boone papers, Lee papers, McClatchy, Paxton, on and on and on, to invite their audience to participate in the survey. They do that through ROP ads in the paper, inviting them to take the survey with the address of the survey in the ad. They also send out an email invitation to various email lists that they have. They also do posts on Facebook. They also do pop-ups on their website, etc. And so what Pulse then does is we've got to make sure, Ashley, there's a statistically valid number of responses or sample, and that number is 400. That is the statistical valid, that's the gold standard, is you need 400 sample to be projectable to the universe, okay? And so what Pulse then does is based upon, and remember, across the nation, is then we look at the data. In some regions of the country, like up in New England, we have over 400 for New England. And so they get regional data, New England regional data. So their data is representative of papers in New England. Some states, like Washington, they got enough sample, more than 400 in Washington, so our clients in Washington get their own data, okay, Washington data. And then we have some individual clients like Palm Beach who get enough sample of their audience to get their own data. In other words, 400. So that's kind of the level. Now, so in directly answer to your question, if each one of your papers promoted the survey, your audience is part of the sample for either your region or your state, okay? So they are represented. To your specific question, how many, I don't know, okay? But it doesn't, and here is the thing that is so very, 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 very important in this research. It's shopping research. Pulse has done shopping research for now 35 years. And there is an extremely high degree of consistency across the country, across regions, from state to state, in the percentage who plan to buy. There's virtually no difference in the percentage who plan to buy, shop at a furniture store in the next 3 months from the northwest part of the country to the southeast part of the country. So if you look at the 550 business categories, there is minimal percentage change. So in other words, when I first started Pulse, we only used national data. It was just national data used by clients regardless of what state they were, because there wasn't any real difference in purchasing plans. In fact, one of our clients up in Canada, they've got 17 papers around Vancouver, BC. They used to do a survey for each one of the 17 papers. Guess what they found out? There wasn't a meaningful difference between each one of the 17 papers and purchasing plans, even though there was a huge difference in the demographics of those papers. Some were Asian, some were lower income, some were extremely high income markets, but virtually no difference in purchasing. So I've covered a lot of ground here, but the bottom line is, Ashley, is your audience, if your paper invited your audience to participate, they are part of the sample. Okay? Ashley?
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. But that's a question I get all the time. And the bottom line is that your publisher could pay to have a sample done of just your audience, a survey, shopping survey done of your audience, and it would not change in any material way from the results you have from your region or your state that's in your Pulse program right now. I'd bet my life on that, okay? So it does not need to be done of your individual local paper. So I appreciate the question. That's a question I'm sure that everybody is, had on the tip of their tongue or thought of. But the bottom line is, and I've made over 2,000 four-legged sales calls, when you're out there, and this is one of the most important tips that I've got. If a business ever says to you, well, this doesn't make sense, or they don't seem to get excited, there's no buy-in, just remember what I said in the very first time we got together. If they think it's your research, okay, then they are much less motivated, because if they think it's your survey, they think it was done to sell you something. And so let me just reiterate, every time you pick up the phone or you're there in person, please remember to say, hey, I've got good news. We just participated in a real estate survey, if I'm with a realtor, or a furniture survey if I'm with a furniture store, or automotive survey if I'm with an automotive business. Because then they immediately, their ears perk up and you got their attention, because they realize, hey, it's about my business category. And then they say, what do you mean by that? Well, we just asked the questions you would ask. Do you plan to list a home? Do you plan to buy a home? Okay, do you plan to change or get a new realtor? You have immediately got their attention and they're interested. That's probably the most important recommendation I can share, is that make darn sure they understand we ask the questions they would ask, so they understand it's their survey and it's their benefit. Okay? So thank you, Ashley. So I'm looking here at our chat. Okay. I think we've covered everything in the chat. Is there anything else? I'm more than happy to assist and support, as long as you guys got questions. Or let me say this, anybody who's bashful this morning, my email is Marling, M-A-R-L-I-N-G, Marling at paper.net, Marling at paper.net. Just shoot me a question, or if you want it to go to the Pulse team, it's support, S-U-P-P-O-R-T, at pulseresearch.com, support at pulseresearch.com. So any other questions that you can think of that you would like to go over this morning?
John, Todd here. I got a couple of suggestions.
Yes, Todd.
I'd like to ask, we have, I think, all of our group leaders on the call and all of our small group leaders on the call. And I'd like to ask each of them to think about, is there anything else relative to Pulse integration that's come up in discussion with them that maybe hasn't been asked yet? And if so, please go ahead and ask now. We've got a little time, or call on people you work with who may have had questions of you to bring those out. We've covered a lot of ground, but while we're all together, there's a lot of value in that kind of participation, and any question that comes up is probably a question that others would ask as well. So Steve, Dennis, Tim, Dan, anything you can think of that we're missing, please speak up.
Nothing additional from me, Todd. My group's been very forthcoming and vocal with their questions, which was good to see this morning.
I agree. It's been a great discussion.
Nothing from me other than, do we have an update on Pulse's integration into BrainWorks?
Nothing in the very near future. We're going to be talking with them again next week to see what's doable, realistic in the short term. Okay.
Not Dan, John, can you give us any background on those discussions and how you see those going? It's very important to us that we find a solution that closes that gap and reduces the number of steps that we take with the two different pieces of software.
Yeah, I totally understand. And what we're doing together is what's the minimal viable product, MVP. And then from that, writing an API so that you have a common communication so that Pulse is embedded into BrainWorks, okay? So the first step is what would be the most simple usable expression of an integration, okay?
We appreciate your work, excuse me, on our behalf, and we've expressed this to BrainWorks too. This is a top priority for us, and we appreciate you getting behind it.
Well, you're welcome. We understand that it's in Pulse's best interest to have seamless integration between vendors. Because I was an ad rep once. You don't want to take the extra time, and it becomes a frustration and confusing. You have to log in 7 different ways to 7 different programs.
Thank you.
I understand totally. And I think, to be blunt, what's happened, we were working on that, and then the pandemic hit, last March. And obviously with Pulse and everybody else, we've had to make major changes.
Thanks. We appreciate you staying on
it. You're welcome.
John, this is Candy.
Yes, Candy.
When you have the integration to BrainWorks and to the CRM, will it take the information that we've already populated into Pulse and merge it?
That I don't know, because as I said, the step right now is looking at what's the minimal viable product. So what you're talking about is integrating backward historically. But let me make a note of that, Candy. Okay. Because obviously that's important, because you don't want to go then out of BrainWorks to go back to Pulse to get something that was old, something that was historic. So I think that's something that could and should be part of the original integration. Okay.
Real quick, David Lovell, you have a question about the time management aspect. Can you jump online and maybe explain that more?
Sure, Dan. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Yep. Yes, Dave.
Yeah. Not a technical question, but just any recommendations that you can have on someone who's struggling to make this a part of their day. What is your best best tip that you can provide for someone who's struggling to make this, to integrate it into their daily part of their sales process. Just anything that you can add. That was the only thing that I've run across with my team, or just in general. Not anything technical, but more just how do we make this the best it can be, and as a part of our daily sales process.
Well, David, thanks for the question. And if I was a Boone leader, I would, and this is based upon best practices from our clients. What I've seen across the country has been the most effective one mantra, and that's 3 by 5. 3 teasers or flyers, 3 by 9, excuse me. 3 teasers or flyers by 9 a.m. each day. It's just simply filling the pipeline. Find 3 people, 3 businesses each day to engage with a teaser or the flyer. And that's one point I made at the beginning of this morning. We need more in the pipeline. And so 3 by 9, David, would be my suggestion. 3 teasers or flyers by 9 a.m. each day. Is that realistic? Absolutely. Absolutely. Each one of your communities, has hundreds and hundreds and literally thousands of businesses, including all the service businesses and the Pulse prospecting tools. Yes, they can easily find 3 by 9 a.m. each day to share the good news, to share the hope, to share the opportunity of your audience for their business. I enjoy doing it as, out in the field, because every business I've ever talked to on the phone or in person has said, thank you. Thank you so much for caring about my business and sharing information about and for my business. And I've said it many times, in these uncertain times, the businesses more than ever need each one of you. So 3x9 would be my absolute answer. Okay.
David, let me jump on that. This is Dan. It's always a challenge to create a new habit, and that's really what we're talking about here, is because everybody has their day filled doing different things, and all of a sudden we're saying, okay, now add this to what your daily routine is like. And the best way that I can recommend doing it is just putting block time on your calendar first thing in the morning to get prepped for the day, to download what you need, and at the end of the day to go back in and put the information in to update what took place during that day. It may be 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes late in the afternoon, and at the same time you're updating your CRM as well. So it can give you a pretty good guidance as far as how much time you're spending doing the different aspects within Pulse. And again, it sounds easier than what it is, because day by day it just sort of builds up that, I guess, the routine DNA in you. But you just have to create the habits around it more than anything else. And what I would recommend, Dave, is when you have your training sessions, talk to the reps about that. Just, bring it up week after week, and how's it working? How's it working? How's it working?
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Well, I sure appreciate, on behalf of Pulse, your great questions and your suggestions this morning. And once again, I'm glad I recorded this, because I can share it directly with the Pulse team. And we'll get back to you with one single document, the Q&A, the Boone Q&A document. Okay, if there are no further questions, Mr. Boone, Mr. Carpenter, Dan, is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
Dan, excuse me, were there any initial comments you plan to make? I know you were having technical difficulties at the beginning. Please go ahead if you've got anything.
I mean, my only point I was going to bring up is this is in some respects like the targeted digital training that we took the reps through, and some reps were, a little more familiar with it than others were, and it didn't all of a sudden take off as far as the knowledge and being able to utilize the knowledge. It just takes, like I was mentioning to David, it takes that day-to-day routine of just using the system, getting comfortable with it, and committing time to it. And again, it's just creating the habits. And if you do it day after day after day, you'll become a lot more confident in using it, and that's going to make the biggest difference. The more confidence you have, the better you're going to be with it. I know John's going to get a lot of these, the bugs, so to speak, fixed. Some of them I don't think are difficult. Others are more challenging, but he will get them fixed. But I wouldn't let that inhibit you from doing what you need to do on a daily basis. In other words, don't wait for perfection before you start using it properly. So that's my recommendation for everybody.
Good. I'll add a couple things to that, Dan and John. Thanks again too for the investment of time and the effort to pull out of us all the things we need to help this important tool work better for all of us. I think the primary point to make here is it's good to be on first base with Pulse. We're making progress. The integration of this tool is a process, not an event. So we don't snap our fingers and tomorrow we are all Pulse trained and equipped marketing consultants. But if we want to achieve the goals that we've set for ourselves and the expectation of being the best professional marketing consultants in the communities we serve for the prospects we serve, this is a key tool, and it will take time to integrate it. And I just urge you, speak up if you have questions. Any little bug that you have, I know John and his team are committed to work on it in a reasonable period of time. in the process of refining how we work with Pulse, what you know about how to work with it, what John knows about how to make the system better for us. This is going to be a seamless process that goes very smooth for everybody, and that will be good. The next step of the integration of BrainWorks will help as well. But I appreciate the work to get us to this stage. Borrowing the athletic metaphors again, I see us on first or second base with Pulse, but it's a home run kind of product. So I look forward to seeing how you all use it and get the most out of it. Appreciate another good start to a Monday morning, and I hope everybody has a great sales week this week, and keep coming with those questions, and we'll keep looking for answers. Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody.
Well, thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Thank you, Mr. Boone. And thank you, everybody else. We sure appreciate it. It's marling@paper.net. Give us a few days and we'll get back to you with a Boone Q&A document. Thank you.
You're good. Thanks.
Have a good day, everybody.
You too. Have a good week.